Okay, let's get started by taking a closer look at those first two signings, with Celtic officially confirming the arrivals of Odin Thiago Holm from Vålerenga and Marco Tilio from Melbourne City in Australia. Question for you, Miff. These are the first two signings of the Brendan Rodgers era, part 2. Can you remember his last two signings?
Last two? Including loans?
Yes.
Who? Toljan?
Jeremy Toljan is his very last signing on loan. Good shout.
And
the infamous
Maurice?
No, Burke.
Marian Shved. But see, if you do look at that January window, it's a nonsense.
Aye.
It's a number of loan signings, Burke and Way and all that kind of stuff. It's little wonder he moved on about a month or so
exactly
later. But let's move on from that. So in terms of Odin Thiago Home, his profile, so he's aged 20, just turned 20 in January, signed in a 5-year deal, which seems very much to be the norm nowadays. He's capped at all youth levels for Norway, but no senior caps just yet. He'll wear squad number 15 and he's come in for a fee of around about £2.6 million. He follows a fairly long line of Norwegians at Celtic, including Chris Ayer, Stefan Johansson, Harold Brattbakk, Ronny Deila, various others. Are you excited about this one?
Yes, I am. I'm quite excited by it. You can only go by what you can see in the videos that you can see on YouTube and things like that, but he's very, very pacey, and if maybe there was one thing lacking in the central midfield, there's a wee bit of change of pace at times, somebody that can really burst beyond the strikers or get up and support the strikers. So whether he'll come in and threaten for the first team straight away, I don't know, but at 2.6 million and by the look of him, he seems a bit of a risk taker, somebody that's want to drive and take people on for a central position. I think that's what we've been crying out for. It's the role that I had really hoped Haksabanovic would make his own. It's a role that I think Hatate could play if he wanted to, but he seems more concerned about keeping the ball at times rather than taking those risks. So to me, it plugs a wee gap in the squad that I think we had, even if it is coming off the bench, somebody that's maybe a bit more direct and a bit more pacey for the centre of midfield is something that we could be doing with.
James, it's a really valid point. So whether it's, Hatate, Haksabanovic, O'Reilly, even David Turnbull, they're all talented footballers, but none of them are guys you'd associate with pace, and this just might be a wee bit of a guy that can make a difference in that part of the park.
Yeah, he's certainly got that. I mean, you see a lot of box to box in his kind of showreels, and albeit they're showreels. It gives you a bit of Scott Brown, but with pace kind of thing. He's got a good bit of dig. Takes a lot of knocks on guys that just can't keep up to him, and he's just going to give us a bit of drive it's missing. I think looking at the value and looking at, Rodgers didn't get convinced to come back to Celtic for £2 million spends. We know where we're going with that. But the same rules are going to apply that they did the last 2 years. We need a big squad here, a lot of games to play, and I think he'll probably start around the bench and be pushing to get more minutes than he starts with. So it's just a matter of how he develops. And his kind of Celtic TV interview, he was quite, I hope to be around the first team very, very soon kind of thing. So I think he's been signed on that slight development phase. You've got to here and we're going to take you to there, and here's the time period we're going to do it in. So players like that can always surprise you as well, though, and just burst on it.
Yeah, and I think if it's fair to say that this is someone that isn't quite a Rodgers signing, and I think that's okay. I think that's maybe a sign of what the new model is going to look like. He's been quite open about the fact that, as Rodgers has, he said that the club have had an eye on him for a long time. I got a chat with him out in Mallorca, happy to sign off on it, basically.
Identified through the club's scouting system, or has been identified through the club's system, was the words that he used, but we're all waiting for that invite to Mallorca.
Everyone else
sounds like it's been an active place over the summer.
The party pad.
I won't say any more than that. For me, it's exciting. James kind of referenced it there around whilst the expectation is that we'll be operating at a higher level in terms of transfers, the system works, the model works, as is being shown, and we're going to discuss a bit later. We are an excellent showcase for young players. If they come and display their talents and promise that they've shown for us to buy them, they will move on for bigger money and make themselves richer young men. So the fact that we are proven as that is a great thing for us. We have to still invest in that level of talent to bring through and develop. But it feels to me like we've done that, and we've identified the targets that we were probably always going to sign anyway. What interests me is what comes next.
Yeah, and that'll be a really interesting point over the next few weeks. James, just staying with Thiago Home at the moment, watching the showreel that you mentioned, you're right. He's very much a ball carrier. He likes to use his pace, and he's tricky to get by guys. From what I've seen, he looked like he started from pretty deep positions. But again, speaking to Celtic TV, he says that he prefers to play as a number 8 or a number 10, and that he's very much a creative player. So that would put him directly in competition with the likes of Hatate and O'Reilly, and it's a tall order to move those guys out of the team at any given time, isn't it? Yeah,
but it doesn't necessarily mean that he does, because it's this big squad. There might be times that O'Reilly and Hatate both need rest, and then you've got an able body there to come in and start the game, or that they're tiring and they need to come off, and you've got someone of his quality to come off the bench. So it'll be his job obviously to change that and say, well, no, he's on the bench and I'm starting. I suppose the really interesting phase we're in is we could be talking about those guys keeping him out of the first team, and then in a month's time they're both gone.
This is true, and we need to keep a close eye on that. I should know better, but I wonder how much. So we know that Ange, more often than not, used all 5 of his subs, usually about 3 of them on the hour mark, and then he kind of drip fed the last 2. I wonder if Rodgers is quite as active in the bench. Any ideas?
It'd been 3 at the time, wouldn't it?
Well, I know, but in the last year or so, what's Rodgers been doing?
Oh, sorry, down south.
I think he was still making changes around the hour mark. He did always really kind of do that from memory. Maybe not 3, but he would make the odd 1 or 2. He was still doing that at Leicester, I believe, from memory. But that was mainly because he was using Vardy as a sub. Towards the end anyway.
It's just
why I get sacked.
We got to know that that's just exactly what Ange done. He very much used the squad. It wasn't about the 11, it was about the 16 that were going to take part. So we'll see how that goes for Thiago Holm. He was also named on European football's Golden Boy list for 2023. I don't know how much value people put on these kind of things. Previously, I think Aaron Hickey was on it, and he's going on to do some good things. But he's named there. The top guys on it is your man that's moved to Madrid from Dortmund, Miff. Bellingham and various guys like that. So he's obviously a guy that's got a lot to offer, and we'll see how that plays out for him over the next few weeks and months. Moving on to Marco Tilio, similar age profile. He's aged 21. I think he'll be 22 in August. Again, it's a 5-year deal. It seems to be the norm. He's got 7 caps for Australia, and he was part of the squad at last year's World Cup in Qatar, although he didn't feature. And he'll wear squad number 23. The fee for him, I think, is $2 million Australian dollars, which is a bit over $1 million sterling. So James, he's also an attack-minded player, but he seems to be confused on either wing, but can also play through the middle. So I think it'd be very unfair to label him as Jota's replacement. I think it's just coincidence in terms of timing. One comes in, one goes, but he should offer good competition in the wide areas.
I think that's it. Rodgers' famous quote was, "I've got my wings of wingers," but at the moment we probably just need a wee bit of cover there, particularly on the right. You like him if he's a go past the guy. Yes, he's very good with the ball at his feet, loves driving it at defenders, and we do need a wee bit more of that. I think he's got a shout on being closer to starting games than maybe Thiago Holm has. Just like the look of him, and he's young. It was an inexpensive signing. I think we can only really, like before, judge this based on what else happens in the next few weeks. So, but I like the look of him. Yeah, very, very exciting.
I liked what I saw. Excuse me. I liked what I saw of Thiago Home. I really liked what I saw in Marco Tilio.
Yeah,
just that type of player that's wanting to come in off the wing, find a wee through ball, take people on, just really direct.
I know he's your type of player, and the next wee bit just confirms it. So I've been reading up on him likewise, and despite being left-footed, you're right, James, his favoured position is off the right wing, and comparisons have been made with Patrick Roberts. I know you'd be happy with that.
Very.
He's that kind of guy, and I think he's an exciting player, and I think he's one to certainly keep an eye out. He's obviously one of many Australians who have made the journey to Celtic Park, and he says that his teammates in the national side, Tom Rodger and Aaron Mooy, had a big influence on his decision. However, Aaron Mooy won't be waiting at the top of the Celtic way to greet him. What do you make of that news that he's now retired at the age of 32?
But I'm not shocked based on his performances after coming back from injury, because you could see he was really struggling. But that fruitful period that he had between the return for the World Cup through about April time, start of April, he was brilliant, and he completely won me over, and that's saying something, because I had written him off based on his rigor mortis performances prior to the World Cup. But to be fair to him, went to the World Cup, played well, come back obviously confident, got himself as fit as he probably could have been given that he had an underlying issue. And I think now that he's retired, I'm delighted for him to go out the way that he's went out. He's went out as a title winner with Celtic. Again, many fans of Huddersfield on Twitter, as I happened to notice through the announcement that was made, saying that he's one of the best players ever to wear a Huddersfield shirt, which they're a very storied team. You know, they've got a great history in England. It tells you just how well regarded he was down south. A shame that we never got to see more of him and that he wasn't as fit as he would have liked to have been. But his place in Celtic history is assured as being part of a treble winning team.
James, you had mixed thoughts on Mooy throughout the season, and similar to what Miff says, he had his real highs for Celtic and maybe some lows, particularly at the early stages. But what's your overall summary of the year he had at Celtic?
I mean, he played a huge part in us winning the treble. There's no denying it. From the minute you saw him at the World Cup, he was like a different player. You know, I thought leading up to that, it was, like you say, a wee bit kind of static in places. The World Cup, I mean, he dragged that Australian team, as far as he could. I thought he was outstanding, and he brought that form back, and it was only injury that slowed him down towards the end. So
good that he kept Matt O'Reilly out the team, which I think is very telling, because Ange loves O'Reilly, but that's how good Mooy was. You just couldn't drop him.
No, and he did have a different skill set. Very tidy feet, got involved in a lot of assists and his own goals. It was going to be an interesting debate, I suppose, with Rodgers here, and we're looking at different levels as to where he would have fitted. But just a player of his calibre having retired at 32, that's always sad. If he wasn't to be at us, if he could have kept going and played somewhere else. But I think he would have been in and around the squad for this season anyway.
I think that's the saddest thing of all, is a guy of his talents at 32 having to retire, whether he'd stayed at Celtic or not. The guy is a class act. So the fact that he's not been able to continue probably tells you what it's taken him to come back for China, get himself fit enough to play at the World Cup and play for us in a successful season. He's obviously pushed his body really to the limit for that, so fair play to him. Seems like a really, really decent guy as well, really kind of unassuming and quiet, but you could see he was really, really enjoying his time here. The abiding memory of him was the time when the fans were doing their kind of singing all the team through at Tynecastle after winning the league, and just how ridiculously uncomfortable it was just being made to kind of dance and acknowledge the fact that the fans were singing. It was class. But no, it's a shame it's ended the way that it has, but what a way to go out, and I'm pretty sure that's how he'll feel as well in time.
Yeah, very talented guy, goes out on a high, and I think the thanks of all Celtic fans go to him for the year he spent at the club. So obviously we've confirmed those first two signings that we've just spoken of, but as is the case generally always, but certainly at this time of year, there's loads of names doing the rounds, loads of rumours flying around. You'll have seen the Kieran Tierney rumours. I can't see any truth in that. A boy who currently earns 6 figures, so I think that's where that ends. Similarly, there seems to be a lot of heat on Scott McTominay. Have you heard any suggestions of that one?
I've heard it. It's not. I mean, it's not for me anyway. We've had 2 years of blistered, exciting football, and McTominay's not that. But we can't afford them, and he's on 80 grand a week. So all those things put together, not for me.
I like that. McSauce. I like it.
McSauce?
Yeah, that's his name.
Is it?
The Man U fans, McSauce, yeah.
Think he's a good player?
Yes.
Where would he fit in if he were to join Celtic?
I would like a bit of McSauce. Midfield.
I know that, but whereabouts?
Yep.
Thanks, man.
No, I think you push McGregor further forward, and I think that's where Rodgers would want to play McGregor.
Yes, it wasn't something I was going to cover just now, but just while we've touched on it, do you think, I mean, we obviously know from
I don't see it happening, though. It just doesn't. It fits for a footballing point of view, it just doesn't. Financially, I can't see it fitting.
Yeah, but not McTominay, I just mean Rodgers and McGregor. So we know from previous where Rodgers did play McGregor. Does he go back to that, James?
I don't know. Having played, two very intense seasons in a more defensive role, and played it with some aplomb with. I don't see him going forward. He's perfectly fit enough, but is there maybe a wee bit of a drop in the pace that he had a couple of years, or even before then? I don't think so.
There's no Scott Brown here though, and that's what Rodgers was used to before.
And maybe he doesn't see Callum McGregor as that player. No,
I'm saying McGregor played further forward when he had Scott Brown to play that holding role. Scott Brown's not here anymore, so is McGregor, maintaining McGregor?
Tomoki Iwata.
So there's a good question. There's some talk that was Iwata on loan initially?
Same deal as Maeda, so he came in an initial loan deal, but I believe it's now been made permanent. There was speculation that he's not remaining, but I think he done an interview with Celtic TV just today or something.
Right.
Iwata will be here, but it's whether Brendan Rodgers thinks he's the man moving forward. But as I say, we'll move on from the speculation just now. There's going to be loads of that in the coming weeks, but some of it's pie in the sky, some of it maybe has a bit more credibility. There's a guy, is it Ryder or Reader?
Swiss guy.
Very talented looking player. That might be a bit more realistic, but he'll come at a premium as well. So
the way it generally is with Celtic in the last couple of years certainly is, if you know their name, they're not the guy that's signing.